So Survivor Series is in the books, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. This wasn't the best Survivor Series, the greatest Survivor Series, and I'm not going to hit you with a bunch of hyperbole, nor am I going to excuse the type of PLE that we witnessed this past weekend from the WWE. They gave us 4 matches, over 3 hours, and very little build-up for most of the matches, to be honest with you. There were no stakes for the War Games matches in comparison to what AEW did for Blood and Guts. Now, I mind you, Blood and Guts was just a lot of blood and violence, which I think turned it up a notch from what WCW did with the match Beyond when they were teamed with the NWA in the late 80s. But it still held true to the rules of War Games. The WWE's version, for whatever reason, decides to stray considerably from the original idea. I'll get to all of that later. What I do want to focus on is with wrestling fans and this need for everything to be excellent. Everything has to be perfect. Now, I was going to make this video separate, but I'm not going to expound on this too much, but I do want to let you know there is no perfection in professional wrestling because there's no perfection in life. You guys, if you're looking for perfection, there is a wrestling simulator called Total Extreme Warfare. I invite you to download that and start your own fantasy league where you can utilize and control the WWE, AEW, or even a promotion that you have created in a text-based simulator where you control the finances, the booking, and all other aspects. You can even buy out other companies when you start running them into the ground. It is very useful, and you can strive for excellence. These are business people running a business, and it's never going to be perfect. I've worked for several corporations in my lifetime, and I've had aspirations and dreams of turning this company this way and utilizing it in this way, and they've given me control at times of running the keys to the castle, giving me the keys to the Lamborghini. But it's like this analogy that I've always said when I was running these companies under the control of the CEOs who were overseeing it all, is that I would patch up, there would be holes in a boat. I would patch these holes up, and I'd get a bucket, and I'd start taking the water that was retaining in the boat out of the boat so that we wouldn't drown. And then I saw land, and we made it to shore, and everything was perfect. And I woke up the next morning, and I was still on the ship. They had ripped off the tape and the bandages. There was more water and bigger holes. It was my job to patch them up. It was my job to get the water out so that we can stay afloat. It's no different in any other form of entertainment, no different in any other form of business. My point is, if you are looking for a certain way that the WWE or that the AEW is going to operate, then you're going to be let down more times than you're going to be excited, than you are going to be satisfied. So, build a bridge and get over it, or I invite you to go check out a company called Juggalo Championship Wrestling. They have a television show on YouTube. It's called Lunacy, and it is comprised of people that hate the way professional wrestling is right now, and they just grabbed Vince Russo. And so if you like professional wrestling a certain way, you are striving for it to be excellent, I invite you to go check them out because they are doing the same thing. Their business model is very similar to the mindset that you have. Otherwise, there is a sea of other companies that attempt to do the same thing, and we have access to them. If not, retro reviews are probably your way to go. Hey, when I was an ECW fan, I always wanted the franchise Shane Douglas to have a promo confrontation with Rob Van Dam. I thought that match would be money. I expected ECW November to Remember 1999 to have Rob Van Dam against the franchise Shane Douglas. It never happened. It's just the way it is in professional wrestling. We don't control it. We have our thoughts, we have our wishes, we have our opinions, we have our critiques. All of that is cool, but it's not worth getting stressed over. Just my 2 cents. Now let's get to the review. I'm going to tell you something about this arena, or I apologize, the stadium. WWE looks great in stadiums, especially the open arena setup. My first experience with the WWE was when it was the WWF, and they had they were inside the Pontiac Silverdome for WrestleMania 3. The setup for the cage was well done, and I wondered how they were going to set up the War Games cage this year in this environment. I was curious. So they did a really good job. Like, I remember going to the Cleveland Stadium to watch SummerSlam, and they had that similar setup. I never expected them to be able to hang a cage in that type of setup. Very well done from the WWE. Got to give them props for that. So the show starts off with the Women's War Games match. This match was laid out very similarly to the Royal Rumble format. Whereas the ring got crowded with more superstars, there were lots of spots where wrestlers just kind of laid around waiting for their chance to do their thing while the two wrestlers did their thing in the ring. And the match built to the big Io Sky spot with the trash can. And this time she performed the Swanton Bomb, or aptly appropriate title here, the Skyfall. Wouldn't that be a cool name for it? That's maybe more what you would call it. And the match was over pretty quickly afterwards, with AJ Lee once again forcing Becky Lynch to tap out, furthering their storyline. The match was carried by its star power, no doubt about it, and by the idea of really pushing Lash Legend as a future monster in the women's division. I'm a big fan. When I watched LFG, there was one star that stood out in my opinion, and I call her a star because she will be. Bailey Humphrey. She is a monster. And eventually, when she makes it into the WWE main roster, she's going to be a terrorizer. And I remember when Bailey was first coming back, I thought it would be dope to pair Bailey with Bailey Humphrey. She'd be like Bailey squared or Bailey cubed, like this giant monster that could be interpreted as a figment of Bailey's imagination, perhaps. Just this monster, and maybe put her in a mask. She'd look like Bane. She's juiced to the gills. She's jacked. Now, of course, she's got to get the fundamentals down, but when have the WWE ever worried about the fundamentals? As long as you can work in the ring, they can build around your limitations. So I expect to see Bailey Humphrey in the WWE fairly soon. I'm sure she's going to run the NXT circuit for a while and then eventually go into the WWE. The point of that all was to say that eventually Lash Legend will be built up to the point, if successful, she will be a prominent fan favorite, especially as Bianca Belair gets a bit older. Jade Cargill starts to become a little bit more seasoned. Those are two opponents. Rhea Ripley is another one. Charlotte Flair is another one, which we got a preview in this War Games match. So I believe eventually what we're going to see is Bailey Humphrey show up and have a gargantuan roster of giants to work with. This could be the era where the WWE takes an old format, which was these big, juiced, giant guys back in the 80s and then early 90s, mid-90s, and built them up to the top of the card. They can easily do that when you have the likes of Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, Lash Legend, Nia Jax, and then Lash Legend show up. They can start wreaking havoc at the top of the card fairly easily. I felt it lacked, as far as the match goes, I felt like it lacked anything exciting beyond the star power. And for that, it was what Scott Keith would call perfectly acceptable wrestling. I did not see very little as far as furthering or progressing of storylines aside from Becky Lynch and AJ Lee. Now, I'm sure as the weeks progress, we're going to get something with Asuka, Io Sky, Kairi Sane. I really felt like with Kairi Sane that she's going to get yelled at by Asuka at some point. So I do firmly expect that to happen, although I expected Kairi Sane to take the pinfall, which would get the argument from Asuka like, you failed us, but we didn't get that. So I'm interested to see how they're going to progress that. I do expect, and this is complete fantasy booking on my part, I have no inside sources on this, but I do expect Julia to become involved in this at some point. I don't believe that Julia jobbed out in 7 seconds just to be ran back to NXT or that they don't have anything for her. I do believe that they're going to reset Julia and position her in a situation where she looks strong, very similar to Stephanie Vaquer, which we'll get to later on in the show. I think the perfect position for her is to be paired with somebody like Asuka, who I'm sure, as Julia was coming up in the ranks of the Japanese promotions like Stardom, that she looked up to Asuka. Asuka never worked for Stardom, But the idea is similar. She was a legend in Japan, a woman that broke barriers in Japan to allow wrestlers like Julia to come into prominence in those circuits. So I do expect that to be the focus. If you look at Julia's entrance, it complements Asuka's entrance very well. If you can get rid of Kairi Sane, turn her face, team her with Io Sky, and then feud with Julia and Asuka, I don't think that's something that's unusual or out of the question. But that's just my opinion. We're going to move on with the show. We're going to talk about Dominic Mysterio against John Cena. Dominic Mysterio, first of all, I'm not here to do match-by-match breakdowns. I'm just here to review my thoughts on the show. If you want match-by-match breakdowns, there are a ton of other content creators that are doing that. I'm going to stick right to my opinions of the show. Dominic Mysterio feigning a shoulder injury was pretty fucking scary. It was. And as WWE has a history with shoulder injuries, you got Chad Gable, Liv Morgan, Sheamus, Seth Rollins, and most recently Penta going out with injuries to their shoulder. I actually felt that could have been a legit move. That could have been legit until the ref didn't call for the bell, but rather called for a medic that was obviously a red herring. This is that old lie, cheat, steal trope from Eddie Guerrero, and in my opinion, they put a modern spin on it. And as I stated, with all the shoulder injuries as of late, he needs to, it was easy to buy into this. When Dom takes it when Dom takes that fall and is holding his shoulder, I bought it hook, line, and sinker, and I defy you to find anyone prior to the ref calling for the medic, not throwing up the X, to suggest that was definitely a ruse, because I did not see that coming. So it was well done and effective in the sense that, oh man, they're going to call this match off and John Cena is going to retain the Intercontinental Championship when everyone knew that John Cena was not walking out of that stadium as the Intercontinental Champion, right? So huge implications if that were legit going forward. I'm talking about John Cena more than likely would have had an extra day to come out and wrestle. Probably someone that would have then had to defend against Dominic Mysterio at some point, but I digress. When Dom takes his boot off, he needs to take a page from Jerry the King Lawler and make it appear that his sock is like extra smelly and old. That would make like the 619 without a boot seem more impactful. That's just funny to me, but I think that would have been a lot more impactful. I do like that idea with his shoe coming loose or boot coming loose. That's a really good spot. It's a heel move. And Dominic just gets it. He understands. His character is just well defined. He lives that character and you can see it. Now, the amount of swerves in this match, the overbooked nature of this match, I swear, Dusty Rhodes was looking down smiling. This match was filled with more tricks than a Scream villain reveal. The bells and whistles definitely kept my eyes on the screen. However, I understand with Dominic being in his hometown against a legend like John Cena competing in his final PLE match, they had to throw the book at Cena here and take away from the reaction of Cena. So they went with an entirely overbooked mess of a match, but it works in regards to Dominic's homage to the Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero. Dominic gets the win here, as we expected, with the return of Liv Morgan, who comes out and hits Dominic in convincing fashion and jumps into the arms of John Cena after Roxanne and Raquel Rodriguez, who were helping, got thrown out. And in quite the homage to John Cena's heel turn, I don't know if you caught this, but we watched the expression on Liv Morgan's face as she's straddling John Cena completely change. And then she drops down from the embrace, the soccer kick to Cena's Weena, and Liv Morgan and Dominic embrace. And now it seems like we will slowly, and I mean slowly, build to Roxanne and Liv going forward. Dominic has already showed signs of working with the El Grande Americanos and maybe starting some faction with them. So it seems to be leading to the Judgment Day kicking out Liv and Dom potentially. And now the pressure's on Cena going into his last match ever in WWE at Saturday night's main event. Easily, at least in my opinion, this was the match of the night. Had all the drama and excitement you would expect from a PLE/pay-per-view match. Not sure it was worth the price of admission at Petco Park, but this was certainly exceeded expectations in my opinion. Now, there was a WrestleMania 42 promo with the theme of the event being Back in the Saddle by Aerosmith, I immediately conjured up memories of Brian Lee from his run in ECW, where he started using, right before he started using Blackfoot Train, where he was primetime Brian Lee in the Triple Threat. I'm sure a few in WWE even realized this was a thing, aside from maybe Paul Heyman. Maybe. Okay. Stephanie Vaquer absolutely destroyed Nikki Bella here. This was a mugging. I mean, Nikki got some offense, for sure, but it was absolutely one-sided. So much that I started to believe that Nikki was going to eke out a victory. However, this was just a straight statement match from Vaquer. It's nice to know that through the strange absence of Vaquer on Raw that we've seen in the last few weeks, that they still have confidence in letting her lead the top of the division in WWE's women's division. As Tiffany Stratton's streak had ended with a loss to Jade Cargill, who was absent from this year's Survivor Series, partly due to not having any worthy contenders, at least worthy of a match on this PLE, Vaquer has taken the reins and the rocket is strapped to her back. Now, do I think this is the end of Bella Vaquer? I do not. In fact, I would expect Nikki Bella to make some sort of revenge attack as early as this Raw to kick off a rematch on Saturday night's main event or head into the new year with this. This is not the end of Nikki Bella against Stephanie Vaquer. Nikki's new character, Bella Gone Bad, is going after the newest generation, and they have more to flesh out with this character. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brie Bella is added to this as some sort of a twin terror thing, or someone from the Divas era's past even coming in as well. I definitely see that coming. But it was nice to know that they gave Stephanie Vaquer a moment in San Diego Stadium at Petco Park. Finally, the men's War Games match was pushed as an all-star game, and I wonder if WWE is going that route going forward, especially considering they need to present a sort of who's who in this match to justify being in a stadium for Survivor Series, if that's the plan going into the next few SummerSlams that they have. I remember when Survivor Series was marketed as SmackDown versus Raw, so maybe with War Games, that's how they'll be doing it. However, if that is the move, they should mix and match the Raw and SmackDown stars so it's not just Raw versus SmackDown. I remember Barrett in this match, he laughed. People should not be having this much fun inside War Games when Jey Uso was doing the Yeet dance. It foretold what was to come because Brock Lesnar's music rang out, cutting the party short. Brock Lesnar came in and was an animal, then sort of faded away. Then Braun Breaker came in, and he was an animal until he got that Doomsday device, and I am shocked he didn't break his neck. It reminded me of when the LOD battled the Godwins in WWF on Raw's War, and Henry Godwin fell like that and legit broke his neck. If he wasn't concussed throughout this match, I would be completely shocked. He's definitely going to feel that in the morning. That was a scary spot. Now, the hook for this match being who the hooded man was that entered the cage towards the final moments of the match and did two signature Seth Rollins moves before leaving the cage and giving the team of the Vision the victory. Now, I have to assume, or at least I have a theory, that this is going to be Austin Theory. Now, there are other culprits that it could potentially be, although very few that can move as fast as Austin Theory up and over that cage the way that masked hooded man did. You've got LA Knight. Make a ton of sense there. Okay? Randy Orton, although Randy Orton's not going to move like that over the top of the cage, let's be real. But then there's another one, which I think is interesting. I don't know if anybody's ever said this before. Montez Ford. Montez Ford, we already know he looks good in a suit. We already knew he has a violent side. He's cut a couple of promos where he's looking at himself in the mirror and there seemed to be like a split personality thing going on. We have teased dissension between him and Angelo Dawkins. There has been teased of dissent there. It would be nice to see Montez Ford make this statement by going into the Vision, having Paul Heyman by his side. I think that would be excellent. I know they're going to probably go with Austin Theory, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. I think that would be interesting, and I think it would work. Montez Ford is a superstar, and he just needs a moment. That would be the moment. I think that would be huge. You got Montez Ford, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. The future of the WWE. Just my 2 cents on that. CM Punk and Roman Reigns fist bumping at the end there, and Cody and Roman not showing respect, I hope is not leading to Rhodes Reigns 3 at WrestleMania, because the real main event for WrestleMania at this point, with Seth Rollins being out, should undoubtedly be CM Punk and Roman Reigns, which is fresh, far more intriguing than yet another Rhodes Reigns encounter. Plus, there's built-in storyline there between Punk and Reigns. I mean, Roman shaded CM Punk for months, not considering him a contender for the Undisputed Championship. CM Punk is shading Roman Reigns, not considering... I mean, when CM Punk was talking about defending his championship, he mentioned everybody but Roman Reigns. There's also that built-in program with Paul Heyman. They both were swerved by Paul Heyman. So there's a story there if they choose to. But with that fist bump, it leads me to believe that there is some sort of a respect there. However, could also be a swerve. So I'd pay attention to that storyline and see how that progresses. But I can most certainly tell you, CM Punk against Roman Reigns, it's money. It's a match that's like 13 years in the making or something crazy like that. So I would like to see. I think the answer for the right way to do War Games lies somewhere in the middle of these two companies' approaches here. And just like I mentioned at the beginning, they all have their different approaches. Blood and Guts, overly violent. War Games, overly saturated and domesticated is the best way to put it. PG versus rated X or rated R or not rated. And unfortunately, there isn't just anyone doing that. So they got to find some kind of a middle ground there. This was just an inconsequential, uneventful, unremarkable PLE. It wound up being over 30 minutes of just, in this men's War Games match, of just trading off beatdowns, long advantages for the heels, long advantages for the faces. Jay's run it back sequence felt completely out of place and out of touch in a match that's supposed to be as violent as War Games. I think the company would be best served shelving this concept for a year or so and only bringing it back the next time it feels like a logical end to a major feud between two warring factions. But I do enjoy aspects of the pacing Triple H has, where he lets stuff play out and he doesn't pull the trigger on stories too fast. However, there needs to be a balance, because if you wait too long, people don't give a shit when it's paid off. Honestly, I know WWE is making money. They're charging insane prices for tickets, and there seems to be little to no backlash for this, aside from what you read on the internet. So as long as business is good, I don't imagine things will change creatively. But Triple H lets stuff play out way too long, it's clear. And it draws away from the tension and anticipation a ton. As underwhelming as this Survivor Series was, and as just uneventful as the end of 2025 has been for the WWE and most big wrestling companies this year, it is still miles ahead of 2019's WWE, and even some of what the pandemic produced during COVID. That is frankly not saying very much, though. WWE will do itself a favor scaling back on the War Games themed Survivor Series match for a while if they choose to, and only presenting it when it matters, when the stakes are there. And I know they're not going to do that. See, the War Games idea was only created to put an end to the destruction of the Four Horsemen, and they should use that concept when a faction is risking the very foundation of the company across both brands, and an all-star team of a mixture of the red and blue brand need to come together to rid the WWE of this faction. But until that happens, these matches come across like Survivor Series traditional matches without the eliminations and a cage added. I expect WWE will bring in a two-night Survivor Series in the very near future. I can see them splitting the War Games matches up between the days and putting on 4-match card on both nights. And this will be the response to the no doubt lackluster response this show is getting and will get, as I'm sure fans alike, aside from the die-hard, crazed fans that you see, will not be satisfied with the overall show, aside from a few big moments, which, in this day and age, the big moments seem to be the key component to WWE these days. It's all about the social media awareness, going viral. They don't expect you to sit down and watch 3 hours unless you're a crazed fan. WWE's new ventures into the, these big moments and all that stuff, it's only going to hurt the product going forward for the wrestling fans. And I don't think they really care about whether they retain wrestling fans or not. Because if you are a wrestling fan, you're going to be watching anyways, whether you hate watch whether you just watch or whether you love to watch it because you're a diehard WWE fan and they can do no wrong. So, just like I said at the beginning, if you are a wrestling fan, there is plenty of wrestling out there for you to watch and enjoy and love. You might not get the views, you may not get the audience retention, but at least you won't be a miserable little fuck. Right? So, did I enjoy Survivor Series? There were great moments, and I think that was the intention that the WWE was attempting to convey here. As January rolls through and they start to build towards the Royal Rumble and then they start to build towards WrestleMania, my only hope is that it does better in promoting the legacy and the anticipation and excitement of WrestleMania that we come to enjoy better than they did last year. And as a wrestling fan and a fan of the WWE, truly, that's all I can hope for. That's what I thought of Survivor Series, you guys. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, there is others on the channel. Go ahead and hit subscribe. It is definitely free. The thumbs up, it does nothing but bring a smile to my face and bring the portal closer to you. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, stay tuned for more.